Today is July 9th, 2022, and the June 28th Profession Update design notes just came out. Now, what are those? Now, these are not patch notes of a future update. These are the explanations for why they did the patch notes of the previous update. So this is not like anything new coming. It's supposed to be an explanation for why they did what they did. They have already said, yeah, this could have been done way better. And in the future, they're going to have the design notes like, hey, we plan on nerfing this for these reasons. And then a little bit of time will pass. Then they'll be like, hey, we're about to make these changes. And then some time will pass. And then they'll make the changes. They learned a lot from everybody getting very upset from them saying on Friday, we're nerfing the crap out of Warriors on Tuesday. And then coming in Monday and being like shocked Pikachu face that everybody was mad. And then, well, we can't stop it now. And then Tuesday exploded. So this is supposed to be what was going through their head at that time. As an example, not long ago, there was a situation where Catalyst was providing quickness, but doing, was it 15 or 25% more damage than every other class that DPSs while providing quickness, being quick brands and quick scrappers. So for that reason, they tried to nerf Catalyst. Now, from what I understand from my Catalyst friends, they didn't do a great job of that one, but I understand why they did that, right? They were I get what they were attempting to do, even if they didn't hit their mark. So that's what this is. These are the design notes from the previous update. Okay, let's go into it. Anything that looks like something we have read in the past, I'm gonna skim over because including that, this is quite long. So this is from Josh Davis. Below you'll find the designer notes for the profession updates that we released on June 28th. Please note that these design notes do not reflect future changes or to balance or balance approach that we'll be making based on the feedback we've received over the last few weeks. Critical chance, spotter, and fury. When playing a power build, a major component of your damage output is getting your critical chance capped at 100%. One major goal for this update is for the same build and equipment to work both in and out of organized play. Unique stacking bonuses to attributes, especially precision, have been a problem here. Their existing means that they're playing in coordinating groups with spotter, manner, or discipline. Your crit hit chance is almost always 10% higher than playing alone. Yep, we saw that before. We saw an opportunity when making to make progress on each of our long-standing goals, raising the floor and player effectiveness and damage output without further raising the ceiling. In this update, these unique stacking attribute bonuses are being changed to provide boons instead. We're making the critical hit chance from them much more accessible by increasing the critical hit chance bonuses from the Fury boon from 20 to 25% in PvE and adding an additional 5% crit hit chance to many professions' traits. And as we all know now, for some professions, they missed the mark on that. Elementalist was a 5% crit chance only in air. Then they told us later on that was getting changed, but at first it was only in air. Warrior, the 5% crit chance is in the condition damage trait line, so it's not accessible to the people who actually care about crit. Most of the others were okay from what I can recall. With this update, your critical hit chance will be higher in most content as Fury is stronger and is becoming more accessible. Increasing Fury and Might access. Having high uptime on critical boons is the strongest indicator of success when playing in group content. Fury increases critical hit chance, significantly increasing overall damage. Might increases power and condition damage attributes as well as damage dealt. Together, they have a multiplicative effect, allowing you to hit far harder than you can without these key boons. In this update, we're adding new sources to ensure that you and your allies have effective access to them with less need for planning a stringent group composition. To that end, we've updated 4 specific traits across 4 professions to be key sources of Fury for groups. Previously, each of these traits were self-only Fury with partial uptime. Now they serve as being able to provide 50% Fury uptime without boon duration for you and up to 4 nearby allies. Elementalist Raging Storm, Engineer No Scope, Mesmer Master Fencer, and Thief Unrelenting Strikes. These traits allow damage-oriented builds for these professions to help support nearby allies by ensuring high Fury uptime, keeping critical hit chances high. In addition, Rangers and Revs can choose to tap into Fury with reworked versions of Spotter and Assassin's Presence, which now will apply Fury to yourself and your allies when entering combat, and every 10 seconds thereafter while you remain in combat. Just to pause here real quick. So here's the thing. If you were in a group before the patch that was already balanced around having Fury and all this stuff, but you also had Spotter and things like that, that means your overall damage output went down. However, if you were in a newbie group and you really kind of didn't know what you were doing, now there's a much higher chance that your group that doesn't really know what it's doing will perform better because these boons are more accessible. So that's kind of the raising the floor thing, but they also did kind of lower the ceiling at the same time. Squeeze. They're squeezing us. Although if you find you're lacking fury, there will be ways to shore it up, and it should become much more commonplace whenever you're playing with someone else nearby. Might is the other half of this equation, and until now the burden has been squarely on the shoulders of heal support builds. By adding more incremental sources of might, we're aiming to take some of this reliance off of healing builds and ensure smoother and more consistent might uptime whenever multiple players are together. Engineer Rifle now gives might to yourself and allies with the damage skill Blunderbuss. That's Engineer Rifle 2. Basically, if you hit 2 every time it lights up, it's 5 stacks of permanent might on your party. Or also by swapping to the trait Pinpoint Distribution when more is needed. Pinpoint Distribution is another perma 5, so Rifle spamming 2 is a total of 10 perma might on your group. Mesmer Chrono boon support builds will provide might with the shield skill Tides of Time. Ranger Frostspirit now applies might to allies in the vicinity. Ranger, they nerfed the crap out of Grace of the Land. Then they moved some of what they took away to the Frostspirit. It is incredibly difficult, close to impossible, for a Ranger to provide 25 might now. And they have to do a lot more to possibly do it. Now, that said, I have good things to say about the changes to Druid as well. But just talking about the might alone, just being like, oh wow, Frostspirit gives might now. Well, yeah, but Frostspirit also lost its 5% damage buff, and also we lost might generation from other places. So this was actually a net loss altogether. Thief, Thrill of the Crime in the Trickery spec has had its might application increased. Warrior Banner of Strength and the Trait and Power allies are now both sources of additional group might. Oh, hey, Warriors! I bet that was a great change. I bet that worked out really well. Fractal Masteries and the Mist Offensive Potion. When playing Fractals, it's well advised to use consumable Mist Potions for bonuses to tackle higher tier bosses. The Offensive Potion increases all damage you deal, however, Fractal Attunement Masteries also cause the consumable Mist Potions to transform your Agony Resist into more stats. With these masteries, the Mist Offensive Potion also increases precision. This causes a similar problem to the other unique precision effects, as it means that to optimize your critical hit chance in Fractals to effectively play power builds, you want to have a different, lower amount of precision on your equipment than playing elsewhere. Since Fractals will be impacted by another critical chance changes, such as increased bonuses of Fury, we're changing the attribute bonus the Fractal Attunement Masteries give to the Offense Potion from Precision to Vitality, which in total, everything added together, because here's the thing, before you could gear for less precision to get more power or ferocity. You can't gear for less vitality to get more power or ferocity. So this is a net loss in overall damage of high-level fractal groups. However, it's a nice thing across the board. And I say nice, not great. When selecting a new attribute here, we had several considerations. Rather than increasing damage further with something like Ferocity, we opted to smooth out fractal progression with the extra health Fatality brings. This was an opportunity to help ease some choke points we see in fractal progression. One such choke point is at tier 3. This is the point where many fractalers have collected enough mastery points to progress fractal attunement. Difficulty of the content has begun to climb, and potion use commonly begins, especially as some can be acquired for free daily with recommended fractals of lower level. By adding Vitality onto the Mastery bonus to the Offense Potion here, we introduce an additional source of health that can smooth out progression and help teach the necessity of Fractal Potions in higher tier Fractal play. This bonus will provide greater health increases as higher value Agony Resistant Fusions are equipped, helping to smooth out rough spots in daily tier 4s and helping to prepare more players to tackle challenge modes. Mist Offensive Potion. Fractal Attunement Masteries now cause the potion to convert its percentage of Agony Resist into Vitality instead of Precision. Items, Rune of Sanctuary, now also converts incoming healing into healing over time, such as This is a repeat. Adrenal Mustard, that's old. Okay, so we know the changes, like this stuff here. We know what this is. What we want to read are these bits here explaining why they're doing what they did. Why they did what they did. Elementalist. Looking at Ellie, we see room for small but key changes in Weaver and Tempest, but need to pull back on potential top-end damage for Catalyst. For those that don't know, Catalyst, the peak of what it can do in very specific situations was insane. However, the skill cap was also insane. Not many people could pull that off. Now, that doesn't mean it's okay. You know, if you've got, you know, like one class and if they're skill capped, their damage is here, and another class, if it's skill capped, their damage is here. I do think that in general, like in game design, that's a problem. However, you know, it was way up there. It was way up there, but only for some people. Weaver is known for being selfish, providing very few boons to nearby allies. They hog all the floor, too. With changes to Raging Storm and Air Attunement, Elementalists will be able to keep a base of 50% Fury uptime on nearby allies. In Weaver specifically, we've also updated the minor trait Elemental Refreshment to give barrier to allies when the Weaver executes a dual attack, helping to incrementally prevent incoming damage. Tempest is gaining the ability to grant alack to nearby allies with an update to Lucid Singularity, which now grants allies alacrity in a circle of radius of 360 when completing an overload. Talking to most of the Tempests I know, they really didn't like how this ended up turning out, because they have to complete the overload. So they are almost non-stop. Change element, overload element, long cast bar, alacrity. Change element, overload element, long cast bar, alacrity. It's like a 2 action per minute, very boring way to play, and they don't get much time to do much else. It also, at first, it gave, I think it was like 6 seconds of alack, and then they buffed it to 7, which of course, if you are using, concentration gear, that's going from 12 to 14. And don't scoff at like the 1 second thing. Like when Scrapper got quickness originally, they upped the amount of quickness you got by like 1 second, and that freed up 1 or 2 slots on our bar. But that said, them putting it at the end of an overload, I think it should probably move somewhere else because the gameplay is not fun. We expect this to be viable with fresh air overload builds, but we'll be watching to see what else the community does with it.
Subs are free with Amazon Prime. And Reed. Okay, who wants nachos?
I would love nachos, thank you. We'll be watching to see what the community does with it and what further tweaks we can make in the future to help it succeed. Catalyst has recently begun to be meta-defining in raids. There was a raid that a lot of people saw footage of that had like 2 supports and 8 katas or something like that, and you know, it was doing absolutely insane amounts of damage, which is what this is probably a reference to. With a personal damage potential almost 20% higher than any other specialization, while at the same time eliminating the need for a quickness support role when stacked. We're making a key set of reductions to it to remediate these issues. Most of the, to pause there just to make sure everybody understands what that is, basically every DPS kata without much effort was providing some quickness. So if you had a group with 4 DPS catalysts, with all of them combined, you had 100% uptime on quickness without needing a quickness support. Then add in like a support mechanist, and then you've got alacrity and heals and might and all that, and then boom, you're good to go. And they didn't like how that was going. Most of the damage reduction to be made to Catalyst is happening by reducing the damage multiplier of Jade's Sphere. However, some particularly unfun gameplay has developed around hammer auto attacks. Singeing Strike, Hammer 1, in Fire Attunement, it deals its damage after half a second, but has another 700 milliseconds of aftercast animation before it can naturally repeat. We've been seeing a pattern of keybinding Stow Weapon and using that to interrupt the skill at the half-second mark, so that it can be instantly repeat and doubling auto attack DPS as a result. Again, it wasn't easy to do this stuff. Like, they did absolutely have to do something, but you know, nerfing the catalyst in a way that affects 100% of catalysts because of what 1% of the catalysts are able to pull off is, that's when things get spicy. That's when things get spicy. Chilling Crack, the 3rd hit in Hammer 1 Water Chain, has a similar issue, whereas interrupting it early allows the chain to be restarted again quickly, raising overall attack damage. Dude, even if it was a damage increase, I cannot imagine playing my class and wanting to stow weapon at the end of every single auto chain. That's just a level of tryhard I don't have in me anymore. I have a bit of respect for the people who are doing weapon stow, weapon unsheath, and pressing 1 again like every, 2.5 seconds or whatever. That's wild. To resolve this, we've cut half a second out of the aftercast animation so that the skills will naturally execute and repeat much faster, while retuning damage on all of Catalyst's auto attacks so that they are closely normalized to their actual animation cast time. Okay. All right. And we know about these changes. We've read them before. I've done multiple videos on these. Engineer. In Engineer, we've updated skills on core rifle weapon to modernize it to more recent gameplay standards and to better support power builds. Now, for those that don't know, I'm going to give a really quick Cliff's Notes version. They redid, it wasn't a straight like buff or nerf, like they redesigned the rifle. A lot of it's just drastically different. However, combined with traits, the new rifle was insane. It was insane. And they actually stealth nerfed it a few days later. It had a, I believe it was 0.75 cast time on the 1. And the 1 fires bullet grenade. It was bang, bang, boom, over and over and over. So it was every 3/4 of a second, you'd get bang, bang, boom. And then they changed it without, I couldn't find it in the patch notes anywhere. They changed it to 1 second. So instead of doing 4 full rounds of attacks per 3-second period, you're doing 3 full rounds of attacks per 3-second period. And because both of those land on the 3-second mark, they line up perfectly with aim-assisted rocket, which is has a 3-second internal cooldown on it. So that's what they did. They did stealth nerf it a few days after, and right now, even still, it went from insane to still pretty freaking good, and very easy to play to boot, and that's where it's at right now. Maybe they'll nerf it again, maybe they'll leave it, I don't know. But like it's not like way ahead of everybody else, but it's right up there with the others, and it's super easy to play. It's quite fun. It feels like you've got a Tommy gun. Okay. One of the standards is that your number 2 skill should be a damage positive if possible. Something you want to use whenever it is available as part of your gameplay. I'm thinking of some other weapons right now, like Ranger Split, Axe's Split Blade. Axe 2 on Necro is huge damage. Greatsword 2 on Ranger is Maul, that's huge damage. Yeah, okay. For this reason, we've switched the location of Blunderbuss and Netshot so that Blunderbuss is now on 2 and Netshot is on 3. Okay, so that's their explanation on why they did that. Simius EU Dex just gifted 10 subs. Thank you so much, buddy. Muckla Douglas, Bartholomew, Reginald Esquire the 4th, this is John Sevastopoulos the 3rd. Welcome to you new subs back to the lab. Hope you enjoy us. Entertainment's on the way. Crank with the speakers, don't touch a baker's giveaways every week. Please take a seat, but you'll only need the edge. Welcome. For the people in chat asking, this was a patch that happened over a week ago, but they released a very late set of notes, and they promise that they won't do this again. But these are the very, very late notes to a patch that's already in effect. Okay, so Blunderbuss is on 2, Netshot's on 3. Blunderbuss had its cooldown reduced and additionally applies 5 stacks of might to the party. If you just hit it every time it's up, it's 5 might permanent. Making this skill key for regular use in combat. To pair with updates to Rifle, we revisited traits that have conflicting range requirements. It was very nice that they did this. The max range at which high caliber and no scope work has been increased from 300 units to 450, while the minimum range at which aim-assisted rocket functions has been reduced from 450 to 150. That means before, aim-assisted rocket literally could not work with Flamethrower Kit, because Flamethrower Kit's max range was shorter than aim-assisted rocket's minimum range. I had a guy in chat the other day, he goes, "What? I've had aim-assisted rocket on my Flamethrower build for years." Well, guess what? Your damage is gonna go up tomorrow, because it wasn't working till now. Gotta read those tooltips, friends. So, creating a zone in between where all the traits can function together. This also created an interesting issue where aim-assisted rocket, because it didn't work with Scrapper Hammer, it didn't work with Flamethrower Kit, it did work with Rifle, but no one really used Rifle much in PvE, and if they did, they didn't always take Aim-Assisted Rocket. Aim-Assisted Rocket apparently had a bug for a very long time, or you could just say a graphical glitch. When the rocket hits the target, there's a little explosion. But on a big target, like a world boss or some strike bosses, the explosion was just the entire screen would flash white. You get flashbanged. And it's got a 3-second cooldown per engineer. So it's like this was in play for a long time, but we didn't really see it being problematic until this patch. And then, you might go into a group and have 3, 4, sometimes 6 engineers because everybody's trying the new stuff. And then it's just constant, just flashbangs and epilepsy warnings. And it's just like, oh my God. So like, it took them a few days, but it was like less than a week for them to patch out the constant blinding explosions. So this whole thing kind of brought to light an issue that's been in the game for quite some time. And then they were like, oh shoot, this is a problem. And then they solved it a little bit later. We've also gotten in some long-time requests for Mechanist Polish, such as making the mech's rocket punch function with any equipped engineer weapon and no longer interrupt mech skills in the progress. Yes, so if you were a support mechanist and your mech occasionally has to channel the F3, that's when it spins around, looks like a blender for those of you who don't play mech. That pulses a lot of the boons that your group gets. And it's quite easy to do, but if you tell your mech to help interrupt a boss's break bar in the middle of that, he interrupts what he was doing to do that interrupt, and then the boons fall off your party, and that's devastating. So this is not required or anything, but it's quite nice that now you can tell the mech to use his interrupt skill and not interrupt that ability if that was happening. Okay, so that's the list of changes. We've already read all this stuff before, but now we know their reasoning. Guardian reasoning. With this patch's focus on removing party-shareable stacking attribute bonuses from traits, we're revisiting the trait Perfect Inscriptions, and it's changing to no longer share Signet passives with allies when activated. Instead, it will allow you to maintain your Signet's passive effects when they are on cooldown, which is very similar to Mechanist J-Drive, which is, it's quite fun. It definitely feels very different when you feel like you can use your Signets at any time and retain the passives. This was a good opportunity to make some changes to Signets themselves. Signet of Resolve previously did not do very much. Every 10 seconds, it would check if you had a condition currently on you. If you did, it'd remove it, regardless of if there was a condition or not. It'd then go back into sleep until the next 10-second interval. I often had a hunch that was how it worked, but I didn't know for a fact. I hate that. So basically, how you want something like that to work is it sits there kind of like locked and loaded. You get a condition, it immediately cures it, then goes on a 10-second cooldown. That's what you want. However, it was like, you got a condition? No, I'm on cooldown. Then you get a condition, and you might have to suffer through it for 9 seconds before it would tick again. And by then, it might be too late. So this is like pretty archaic design. We've updated the Signet to function more like a condition-blocking version of Aegis. While not on internal cooldown, the Signet is now watching to see if an incoming condition will be applied, and if it is, it wakes up and immediately removes it, then goes on a 5-second internal cooldown. It'll also work if there's a condition on you when it comes off internal cooldown too. These changes will make it a lot more useful and able to compete against other strong healing options. That's wonderful, I'm happy for them. Okay, so all of this we've gone over before. Okay, Mesmer reasoning. For Mesmer, we're making changes to how Chronomancer can apply boons to allies, with a focus on making their boon application methods easier to use with a consistent size 360 circle and easier to keep up with moving groups. A lot of their abilities to fire boons in the past, like there was the shield where they fired the wave forward and then it came back, that was tricky to land. As someone who heals with medkit and basically sprays stuff in front of me, someone stacking directly on top of me means I can't heal them very well sometimes. And so I totally get that that's troublesome. If you can have them just emanate from you in a radial, it's much easier to keep stuff on your party, heal them, boon them, whatever. An essential piece of this is Shield 5 Tides of Time. The boons applied by Tides of Time are now applied to allies around you immediately when cast, without the wall needing to pass through them. Yep, see? By default, Tides of Time will apply Might and Swiftness, however Chronos can now dedicate to either a Quickness or Alacrity boon support role based on their Grandmaster trait selection. Selecting Stretched Time will add Alacrity to Tides of Time, while Seize the Moment adds Quickness. I want to pause there for a moment and go back up here. Since we talked about Engineer, where is it? I'm doing Control F. Yeah, they didn't have any explanation for why they did this. So Engineer, one of the mech Grandmaster traits now gives them quickness when they use a mech skill, F1, F2, or F3. And it's, even as someone who loves playing as Engineer right now and I consider it my main, it's too much. We didn't need that. Like, people have already found builds that are like just perma self-quick, or perma self-quit, perma self-alack, but slightly lower damage, but just open world, you're just a demon. Or, you know, perma alack on group plus damage, or just big damage. It shouldn't even freaking be there, honestly. I think it's too much. So it's weird that Chrono, the people that for years were the only people that could do quickness and alacrity for groups, are now just kind of a caffeine-free diet mech when it comes to quickness and alac. To be clear, the quickness on the mech is self-only, but I don't even think it should be there. Okay, well, seize the moment adds quickness. All right. Stretch time replaces lost time and causes all wells to apply alacrity to nearby allies when cast. This effect is immediate when the well appears and applies in a 50% larger radius than that of wells themselves.
A new arrival.
Okay. I do like the idea of a, like, Diviner Chrono. And they're a team player, they like playing Chrono, and they join a group and they're like, hey, do y'all need quickness or alacrity? I'll do one if someone can do the other. And then they just change a trait, and they slightly change how they're playing. I like that. I think that's cool. It certainly hasn't become popular since this change. I don't know that I've grouped with any Chronos since then. But I like the idea of what they're trying to go for. Necromancer. We're making a key quality of life improvement for Reaper players with a change to death perception. Instead of giving 33% critical strength chance while in Shroud, it will now give 10% crit chance all the time. This change allows you to consistently select your gear to cap crit strength chance all the time without needing to significantly overcap your crit in Shroud. We're also changing the ferocity to a 15% damage multiplier for your crit strikes. Overall, this is a small buff to damage. Was Death Perception a Grandmaster trait, or was it something lower tier? So now it's currently 10% crit chance and 15% crit damage. It's definitely a lot weaker now. I mean, Warhorn and the related trait Banshee's Wail have been updated to be an option to provide some healing support to allies. Locust Swarm now also heals nearby allies based on the amount of enemies hit. I tested this. It's a buff because it didn't do it and now it did, but it's really, really tiny heals. It's kind of like, okay. Like I tested it in full healing gear on a Necro against 5 targets, and it was like a couple hundred per. While Banshee's Wail increases all of your outgoing healing by 10%, which isn't much. They also, I believe, they didn't really mention it here, they removed the fact that the Warhorn thing was unblockable. I've seen a lot of flack on that. A lot of people, you know, specifically like PvPers and stuff that really, really were enjoying the unblockable Warhorn days. Now it is a blockable Warhorn fear. Okay. So skipping all the specific notes here, going down to Ranger. The Ranger changes being made to Ranger are on Spirit skills. Spirits no longer apply effects when an ally in the radius strikes an enemy. Instead, each Spirit applies a boon to allied targets in the radius in each 3-second interval. The Nature's Vengeance trait increases base duration of these boons by 50% and causes Spirits' activated skills to apply a lack to allies in the area. We've made some improvements under the hood on how spirits work. Although the activated skill is the same, spirits now respond instantly when ordered to do them. Previously, there was up to 1 second delay before the spirit would act, as if it was listening for an update on a 1 second interval signaling to use the skill. Now they'll teleport immediately, and when Nature's Vengeance, alacrity is instantly applied to nearby allies around your location. This is a good opportunity to make a change to Druid's Grandmaster healing trait, Lingering Light. The old Lingering Light gave very bursty healing with a large increase. It was 50% more healing in Celestial Avatar. We wanted to smooth this out and have part of this bonus carry over for 10 seconds after you exit Avatar, so it's a more reliable option overall to improve your healing output. That didn't seem like enough though, so we're also using it to help increase the reliability of your Astral Force generation. While not in Celestial Avatar form, Lingering Light will passively generate Astral Force at a slow rate. I tested this. It's about 60 to 70 seconds to go from empty bar to full while you're just like AFK. However, keep in mind that doing any damage or any healing gives you astral power as well, which combines with the passive generation, and I gotta say, it felt way nicer. Now, there were negative and positive changes to Druid in this patch, in my opinion. This one was a positive one. It felt better to play Druid with this. Like, keep in mind, this is the same class that used to ask allies to /GG and kill themselves so that you could revive them so that you could have enough druid fluid to heal somebody else. Like, it was a doctor that had to punch out one patient before it could heal another patient. It was the freaking weird. It sounds like something you would expect of a necro, but no, it was druid. But it's a little nicer now. The thing is, it requires a trait, and it feels really bad now when you don't have that trait. Together, Adjusted Spirits, a method to apply a lack and steadily improve healing from Lingering Light, should provide a much more competitive heal/boon support profile in druid groups. But they don't mention that if you take Lingering Light, you can keep like 15 stacks of might up, down from 25. Because you have to have Frost Spirit and Warhorn, and that's like 15 stacks of might, and then you can take Lingering Light. But as long as you got someone else giving some, like a DPS engineer now with a rifle can give 10 stacks, you're golden there. But you have to check now. You have to check. One thing that was not mentioned here, I mentioned in a previous video, we found out that now spirit boons are, for whatever reason, pulsing from you. So if this is your spirit and this is you, the boons are pulsing over here, and people around this area are getting them. So like your water spirit will apply regeneration, keeping itself alive, because spirits die over time. But if you move away from the water spirit, you get regen and it doesn't, and then it slowly dies. It's great in a lot of content, terrible in a couple of pieces of content. If any of you have ever done Sabbatha and you had a druid flat kiting, they're gonna hate that right now, because the spirits they leave on the party are not giving you the buffs anymore. The druid running around kiting flak is. So all those situations where the druid was leaving spirits with the group and running out to do a mechanic, now the group will lose their buffs. So you could have the Mechanist do that same job, because now the thing is, I don't know if the boons applying from you is a bug or intended, because there's no mention of it here. But again, in something like Fractals where your group is moving quick, it felt good. Because as long as you were stacked up with your group, even if the spirits couldn't keep up, you were giving all the boons to your party, and that felt really nice. But again, on certain raid bosses or strike bosses and things like that, it felt awful. So you really couldn't have it both ways unless there was some kind of toggle or something. Hey, there we go. Add a toggle for where the boons come from. Add a little switch on the bar by the spirits. Okay. So that's what we know about the reasoning for ranger changes. So going down. Revenant. On Revenant, we focused on updates to Ventari legend skills and Salvation to create new opportunities for effective healing builds, and an update to Herald to allow them to provide quickness to allies. Ventari is a legend most suited for supporting allies through healing and condition removal, but the rest of its kit struggles to keep up with the range of tools available to other support builds. The usability of the tablet is another limiting factor. It can be extremely difficult to keep the tablet in the correct location, especially in engagements that are more mobile. We decided to remove the healing from Ventari's will to allow us to significantly reduce the cooldown of moving the tablet so it can always be where it's needed. I like the idea of the tablet. It is something that makes the Revenant healer unique. However, in the hands of someone who don't really know what they're doing, it can be quite clunky and hard to use. Especially the healing skills where it dropped, past tense, little healing orbs all over the ground. Because you know who needs the most healing in a party? It's the people not paying attention to the ground. And those people are not going to run around and pick up Kit Kat bars that you left all over the place to feel better. No, they're going to continue standing in the red circles. So sadly, your target audience, your target customer for your healing is not going to be picking up those circles on the ground. So they did remove that, which is good. We've added a new mechanic to Centaur Stance, which grants a bonus effect to the first skill used after summoning the tablet. This is a way to add some additional tools to the kit without just applying extra functionality to every usage of every skill. The bonus effect applies after entering Centaur Stance and after destroying the tablet via energy expulsion and resummoning it with Project Tranquility. While looking at Ventari, we always wanted to pass on its supporting trait line Salvation. The healing orbs created by Salvation have always been a difficult way to provide healing, requiring allies to move to precise locations in order to be healed, instead of simply healing in a radius like most professions do. Between this change and the movement adjustments to the tablet, we hope to see significant improvement in gameplay feel for healing Revenant builds. Salvation is another place we want to add more diverse tools for support Rev builds. Alacrity was something that needed to be removed from core Rev to allow quickness to be given to Herald, but this made room to give additional boons to each Centaur Stance skill via Serene Rejuvenation. Protection also makes its appearance in the updated Salvation line, with Fortified Blessing granting it to allies when removing their conditions. Herald can now grant quickness when activating Facet Consume skills with the trait Draconic Echo, creating opportunities, new boon support, hybrid healing rolls. So, I like what they're trying to do here. I don't play Rev except very rarely when I'm like, helping spread the word on guides and builds that I've seen. I learn how to play that build. I then, master it. I advertise that one thing and then I just put it on the shelf. So I am not speaking with personal experience on this. I have watched some videos of some other content creators that have played Rev at a much higher level than me, and they're not really happy with the changes. The quickness was kind of clunky when this patch came out. The loss of alacrity hurt because they kind of made a trade there. And I haven't seen a single Revenant healer since the patch came out, so I can't really say much on it other than the fact that I'm not seeing it. I haven't seen anyone run it yet. So that's it for the Rev reasoning that they gave. Thief, Shadow Arts. Lord Heisen says, yes, it's really hard to keep up the quickness uptime. Yeah. Thief Shadow Arts has long been a source of frustrating gameplay, particularly in competitive PvP in World v World. This is partially due to the stealth generated by Concealing Restoration, Meld of Shadows, and Hidden Thief, which compounded with other Thief stealth skills push sources to push stealth access to exceptional levels. Shadow Arts also has numerous traits that reward staying in stealth for extended periods of time, reinforcing the desire to create builds with high stealth uptime, which can be difficult to interact with. We want Shadow Arts to reward stealth, but in a more active fashion than it currently does. To this end, many traits that triggered on intervals while in stealth have been reworked to instead grant their effects when entering or exiting stealth. This new behavior promotes using shorter duration stealth to quickly reposition and use a stealth attack instead of sitting in stealth to accumulate value. We're also taking this opportunity to add some additional support tools to the line to complement Shadow Savior in builds looking to provide a bit more group utility. So this kind of becomes an issue of how they want the game designed. The Thief is often compared to World of Warcraft's Rogue, which can basically just stay in stealth and go AFK and have dinner and come back and you're still in stealth. Now, the Thief in this game requires a lot of combo field usage and stuff like that to stay in stealth for long periods of time, and it caps, so you can't just go AFK or anything like that. It takes a lot to do it, but I think most Thief players play Thief because they want to be a sneaky assassin. The kleptomaniacs that they are. And it seems like the devs of the game, at this moment in time, that's not what they want. They want it to be someone who can ninja vanish periodically, but not just be in it all the time. So we're gonna have to wait and see if they keep that mindset, or if at some point what they want the Thief to be in the game and what the community wants the Thief to be in the game is going to end up lining back up at some point. Valen said he's been asking for these actual stealth changes for years, and he's a Thief main. That's good. That's good. Valen is an excellent Thief. I enjoyed the stealth sustain Thief. I like going in and out of stealth personally, not just sitting in it. And see, we can see examples of that right now in chat. There's people on both sides. So, okay. So that was their reasoning for that. Warrior. I don't like how small of this body of text is, as I feel like you got a lot of splaining to do.
Oh boy, he coming.
I feel like they got a lot of splaining to do, and then we got that. Before that though, I want to show y'all something. Let me find it. Here we go. So yeah, most warriors right now are like, man, I can't wait till they fix warriors. And then Lord Heisen's on my Discord posting pictures like this with Bladesworn. Like, guys, look, new record. That's a phone number. 15 million. Yeah, so yeah, I hope anyway, Warrior. Keeping an eye on Bladesworn play since EOD's launch has shown us several opportunities for Polish to improve the experience here. Warrior players don't have a lot of options for utility skills that can increase their damage output, and this is carried over to the Bladesworn skill kit. Improvements to Dragon Spike Mine make it much more impactful as an effective source of damage. Oh, thank you. We've also added a new Bladesworn utility skill, Overcharged Cartridges, which together with an updated Tactical Reload grants you new tools to further increase the power of Dragon Slash. Overcharged Cartridges was funny. The moment the patch hit, this ability said it had a 20-second cooldown, but it had a 2-second cooldown. And it took 2 clicks to activate it. So you could just spam click it and just be like, you know, lock and load, throw, lock and load, throw, lock and load, throw, lock and load, and just keep doing that. And it was just like 200 Defiance damage every 2 seconds or something. It was stupid on break bars. It was absolutely stupid on break bars. That they hotfixed pretty fast. Like within hours, they hotfixed that because that was big oops, big oops. With the removal of many shareable attribute buffs, we are revisiting what warrior banners do with an eye to use them to give the warrior access to boon support roles. Banners will apply quickness to nearby allies when they're deployed. Yeah, like, was it a few seconds every 60 seconds? And then continue to pulse a specific boon for its duration. This isn't intended to cover quickness alone. It apparently wasn't intended to cover quickness at all. The tactics trait, Martial Cadence, now causes soldiers' focus to apply quickness in the area as well, and Warhorn's Charge is now also a source of quickness. So we tried this out, Soldiers' Focus, Martial Cadence, Warhorn's Charge, and the banners. It's really tricky. It's clunky. It's very clunky, and you got these banners that you have to go back and pick up and move them again and stuff like that. It's... Even if you were only bringing them for like, hey, you know, warrior, can you supply might for the group? Even just that, it's a pain. It's a pain. And the thing is, I know they don't want to make them exactly like spirits or exactly like, you know, just pulsing from the character like a herald, because there's other people that do that, and you know they're trying to make banners be their own thing. But this thing is really not great. And right now, I've said it before in previous videos, if you're a warrior right now, they've already said the 5% crit being in the arms tree is going to be looked at very soon. They're going to be re-looking at the banners thing very soon because they basically dropped the ball on it. Right now, it is in such a way, I can't recommend any warrior currently play a banner build or try to be the quickness guy. Just be big, fat, thick, girthy DPS. That's it. Just hit things. Just Hulk smash until the patch comes out. Just do that. Just do that. Watch them move the 5% crit to defense. If you're lucky. All right. You know what, Errol? Just for you, they'll put 2% crit in one core tree, 2% crit in another core tree, and 1% crit in another core tree. So you can only get the 5% crit when you take no elite specs. There you go. All right, so that is what they did with Warrior and why they did it. This person says, can the balanced team bring Warrior weapons that aren't Axe or Greatsword up to a more modernized gameplay standard like the NG rifle? I'd say they're good candidates for upgrades, yep. There are a lot of out-of-meta weapons across professions that the team would like to bring up a bit. Generally speaking, there are weapons that need more mechanic updates and reworks, like updates to NG rifle, but others may need only number tuning to bring them into play a bit more consistently. I like that. I like that. Let's see. What is this one? You heard a lot of things, but I still don't see what your vision for each class is. You just repeated what you did. Why do you remove unique buffs? What is the end goal of that? What should classes look like? What should a high-end content look like? Should every class give every boon without anything unique? Should weapon skills be main source of damage and utility skills just fashion? What do you want to achieve? It just doesn't make any sense. Any of it! These are reasonable questions. I just want to clarify that this post wasn't intended to lay out the overarching balanced philosophy for PvE, PvP, or World v World. That'll come later. I actually thought it was. That'll come later. I posted a breakdown of our next steps last week. They did. We need a guard hammer rework. Okay. That's it for now. So, I gotta say, after reading all of it, I'm a little lackluster. it was like I had forgotten most, because I don't play Warrior. I had forgotten most of the pain of the patch. They're reminded every time they logged in. I've forgotten most of the pain of the patch, and this just kind of like reopened those wounds. A reminder again that they said that they learned from this, and in the future they're going to release the design notes, wait like a week or two, then release the exact things that they are going to do, wait some time, then do the patch. They're not, they do this for a living. They don't want to get yelled at by people. That's not their goal. So they are trying to make the game better, but they definitely feels like they kind of missed the mark with some of these. You know, there are some fun things and cool things that came out of the patch, but there were a lot of things that went bad that it feels like would have been really easily avoided if they just talked with some people beforehand. So all right, that's it for this. A reminder again, these aren't future changes. These aren't changes that happen today. These are changes that have been in the game for over a week. They've already happened. These are just more small insights into why they did those changes. Hopefully we get some more in the future, but that is the news as it is today. See y'all next time.